So talking about the new moon in Pisces, the Chaitra, the Chaitra Navratri, the 30-day cycle that begins in Pisces, and also this is a new year in India as well, where we celebrate the new year. This Chaitra Amavasya, or this new moon in this month. So we're going to be talking about that and all that implies, including the Kumbh Mela and other things. So check this out. Okay, folks, so as you see, we're here and we're talking about this new moon and this new year in Pisces. You see it's also in Revati Nakshatra. It's also called Chaitra or Rama Navratri or Chaitra Navratri, which is the 9-day celebration of the Divine Mother that also happens at this time. And as you can see, this is also, I do have, oops, let me just put it here. Sorry, a little discombobulated here. I did want to also let people know that you can get this 2021 forecast if you haven't gotten it yet. I put the link in the comments. You can go there and check it out. We're only here right now in the year, right? With Jupiter just having entered Aquarius, we're starting the new year now, and in this free web class, I actually talk about this Jupiter transit through Aquarius and Capricorn for each of the 12 signs. So if you're interested in how these Jupiter transits from 2021 will be affecting you, you will also hear that in this free web class. So you could just click there and get that as well. So I just wanted to let people know. But this is a very important shift that we have happening right now with this new moon in Pisces. This one is called this new moon is also the beginning of the year in India. It's one of the new years. They have several new years in India, and the one that begins on the new moon in Pisces is also very important. Hang on a second. Yeah, is also very important because of this, falling in this lunar month or this Soli lunar month of Chaitra, which again, I just want you to understand if you don't understand that this shows actually the sidereal connections to the Zodiac that we still celebrate, because Chaitra is, of course, it's the solar month that's connected to the likely full moon nakshatra, which is likely to happen in Chitra. So the reason that these Soli lunar months are named as they are is because they were measuring these lunation cycles sidereally back in the ancient times. So we still see the remnants of that now. And again, this is a Soli lunar month. It's not a calendar month like January, February, March, or like they used to celebrate in India, Tapa, Tapasya, etc. This is a Soli lunar month, not connected to the calendar, but connected to the sky, right? And those Soli lunar months are named after nakshatras because, again, they were measuring everything with the sidereal sky. And so this is the Chaitra new moon, and it's actually even the time when we have this, what's called Chaitra Navratri, that is also starting now. And again, this is a search on Google for. I also put Vasant Navratri because Vasant is the Indian season that starts now. But again, you can see all these names. Vasant is the season. Chaitra is the Soli lunar month, and of course, it's also in the Rashi or the sign of Pisces. So again, there's a lot of ways, and these are all different ways of reckoning for the year. And it's also right now, let me pull this up. this is, of course, the Kumbh Mela now, as well. As you see, this new moon now in Pisces is also coinciding rather with Jupiter being in Kumbh or Aquarius. And so this is the Maha Kumbh Mela. This is when pilgrims from all around India descend and take a sacred bath at the because when Jupiter goes into Kumbh, that's when we have the Maha Kumbh Mela every 12 years. And of course, it's the Maha Kumbh Mela. Once we have the new moon at that time, like we have now, we just had the new moon with Jupiter in Kumbh, and it's the new moon in Chaitra. It's the Chaitra new moon with Jupiter in Kumbh. That's the big moment of the Maha Kumbh Mela. Now you have the half Kumbh Melas as well. You have you also have the Melas that are not the full Kumbh, because Kumbh is Aquarius. That's the one every 12 years, but you also have the half one when Jupiter's in Leo. You have it when Jupiter's also in Taurus and Scorpio, because they're at different points. But the Maha Kumbh Mela is also happening now, and as you can see right now, there's a lot of indicators with the because of COVID and whatnot. So, but just wanting to let people know the significance of this, because again, Jupiter is in Kumbh or Aquarius, and we just had the new moon. So that's the big moment where the Maha Kumbh Mela becomes so potent and rich. So again, the reason that they start this year at this time is because you see that it's this new moon when it's the month of Chaitra. It's very close. It's the one that's closest to sidereal Aries, which is the first Rashi, right? Which is the first sign of the Zodiac. And so this is seen as a beginning of the year. One of the big beginnings of the year. Another one is also the new moon after the winter solstice, as the moon starts moving north. That's actually the new moon and the beginning of the year that they honored in the Vedas. That's the one that I really consider to be the initiation of the year, because it's very closely timed to the solstice. This one is very closely timed to the equinox as well, because again, we just had the equinox. Now it was on the 21st, so it was about 3 weeks ago we had the vernal equinox. And so the new moon after the vernal equinox, sometimes it happens closer to it, is also important. So again, these are some very important considerations that we have, and why these times are very aligned. This so again, we also see that they are celebrating this Navratri time, this Vasant or Chaitra Navratri, which is a Navratri around the spring. The second Navratri happens in the fall, right? This one is the Sharad Navratri. This is the Vasant Navratri, and it's very much a springtime celebration of the Divine Mother as well. It often, mostly in northern India, but all over India, they're always looking to celebrate the Divine Mother. So there's no reason to skimp on, throwing some love to the Divine Mother. But it's also deeply linked to the Ramayana. And the 9th lunar day is called Rama Navratri, which is said to be the birthday of Lord Rama, during this month as well. So again, very sacred, holidays now that where we are looking at a lot of sort of renewal, rejuvenation, and other ways to celebrate the spring, the reconnection to God and purpose, and our true nature as being part of this Leela, this illusion of life in the body. So with that backdrop, we also have, of course, it's in the Rashi of Pisces and in Revati Nakshatra. And so this of course is happening, as you can see, at the very end of Pisces. Right now, what's happening with the lunation cycles is that we're getting the full moons before the new moons. So the next full moon is going to be in Libra, which will be preceding the next new moon in Aries. But still, what this means is that even though this is the case, like a sort of foreshadowing, we're still focusing on this this cycle of Pisces energy, but it's going to transition quickly into Aries, because then you're going to see the sun move into Aries. And in fact, as I'm recording this today, the sun will be moving into Aries on the 14th, I believe. Sorry, one second. And so, actually on the 13th, actually tomorrow, the sun will be moving into Aries, sidereal Aries. So it's really a time to feel that quality of Pisces, which is the sort of transcendence and the connection, and then really move into a sort of rebirth. This is really a time of rebirth and renewal, with those Pisces themes being about that introspection, that kind of surrendering, and that kind of inner, as I say, rejuvenation, even like the in-between life state, the dream state, where we're kind of hopefully awakening from the illusion, from the dream, and then acting upon it and acting with a newfound identity and truthfulness in Aries. So what we can expect and experience for the next 30 days or so is definitely this kind of transition, almost like the butterfly, like the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, so to speak, like in the chrysalis, right, in the cocoon. Pisces is kind of like the cocoon where things are gestating. And as you can see with this new moon happening right at the end of Pisces, you can imagine it's right as the butterfly is like fully formed in the cocoon, or like the fetus is fully formed and just ready to come out, just ready to burst forth. So again, you have to remember that this is the end of a cycle that started last Chaitra. It started last year in Aries, right? So it started last year and comes back around. Now we're at the very end of 12 months that began last year. And Pisces is that last one where we are letting go of the past, where we're sort of in that final cocooning stage and ready to burst forth again. So as we see, this metaphor is kind of like as the fully formed caterpillar is starting to bust through the shell, ready to spread the wings and be reborn. It's that kind of metaphor in this sort of Pisces to Aries cycle. And so this nakshatra here is a nakshatra of Revati, and it's this nakshatra that shows those last steps on the path, those last final steps as the soul is finishing the journey, as the soul is completing the journey. One second. As the soul is completing the final journey, the last steps are being guided by the shepherd. Here's the shepherd. See, I have these, here's Pisces, which are the two fish kind of in that sort of subliminal space. Imagine like two fish kind of going back and forth, like kind of in circles, but also just kind of like a yin-yang symbol, where we're in something that's not so tangible. And the last steps of the journey is the shepherd energy, the shepherd who leads the flock home. Any of you who are blessed to have a wonderful guru in your life, a wonderful Sadguru, knows how powerful and important it is to be able to surrender and to just trust and surrender into the arms of the divine mother, father, teaching, whatever it is. And to just trust in the benevolence of the universe. The universe is benevolent. It's the benevolent entity that has given birth to everything. Everything that is here is a creation of the Divine Mother. When you want to understand what the Divine Mother is really about, it's just that simple. Meaning that it's that benevolence of the universe that has given you everything, even though you did nothing really to earn it. Think about it. You did nothing to earn, you as meaning like your ego. You are just given. It's just given to you. Now, all kinds of things are given. They don't always make us happy and all that stuff. So these aren't simplistic ideas. We can reduce them to something simple like, well, why do people suffer and why is things so bad? Or we can always bring that in. But when we're looking at things in a more universal, transcendent way, we don't have to get anything. We don't have to be alive. But we are given breath and air and food and other people and other things. And yes, we're giving struggles as well. And ultimately, we come to see all of them as different faces and facets and aspects of the Divine Mother. And that we're in the womb of creation. So those who can relax and surrender into that can understand this nature, especially of the shepherd leading the flock home, where we just need to relax and surrender and trust. And we have a hard time trusting anything or anyone because of our ego, because we think we have to do it. It's up to us to do it. It's up to me to do it. And it is up to us. It's up to us. We have to use some effort, but most of the effort is the effort to surrender. That's the hardest thing. We want to have control. We really need to learn how to force ourselves to surrender. This effort to not feel like we're in control. So it's like a contradiction. And again, this is actually a lot of this Piscean energy as well. We want things to, we try to collapse things into simplistic black and white binary choices. And that doesn't work. Yes, we need to take effort, but we need to take effort to surrender, to relax. That's the effort. And to trust and to allow our ego to dissolve. And I say allow it. So Pisces energy is very much like sleep in that sense as well. Think about sleep. You can't will yourself to sleep. You can't force yourself to go to sleep. Sleep happens to you. It comes to you. Sleep overtakes you. You can't will yourself to sleep. I know I've tried. As someone who's been a chronic insomniac, you can't make yourself go to sleep. You must surrender to it and allow it to happen to you. And this is one way that Pisces is very similar. Just like you can't force sleep, you also can't force grace. You also can't force God to give it to me. I'm doing the meditation. Give it to me. You can't. It happens to you. It's grace. That's what grace is. It's always flowing. You have to surrender to grace, just like you surrender to sleep. I know many times I've laid in bed trying to fall asleep, but my mind has grabbed a hold of something and I'm figuring out, something in my head and I can't stop thinking about it. And I try to think about it. The only thing that works is the only thing I can do is just lay there and visualize like my guru's face and kind of pray to her to please let me sleep. Please bring some sleep. And even that's an effort. Even that feels like effort. Then I have to say, don't have any goal. Just visualize that and surrender and just breathe. Surrender. But it's very hard to force yourself to surrender. It happens. It just has to happen. So then what I wind up doing is I wind up saying the mantra and saying the mantra that and doing a practice that my guru Amma tells us to do. I just follow the breath and I stop thinking about anything or trying to do anything or make anything happen. Instead, I just inhale Ma, exhale Om. It's called the Ma Om meditation, and that'll eventually bring sleep. But it's because I have to surrender to it, not because I force it. And even saying Ma Om is an effort. So sleep, just like liberation, just like grace, this is the Pisces, this is surrender. Because we're doing it, but we're not doing it. It's effortless effort. It's an effort to surrender. And it's very much easy for the ego to interfere. So that's very much that quality of Pisces. And then the shepherd just leads you home from there. This is really what meditations are about. This is really what meditation leads to. Again, it's very tantric, which is about surrender, not about effort. Yoga is about effort. Discipline. Move this way, breathe this way, sit this way, and eventually you'll surrender. After doing all of this stuff, you'll create the environment where you can surrender. And you'll get the awareness that you're not the body. You'll get the awareness when you do all of that, your awareness increases, and it's an awareness, it's a higher awareness of something that's not you, so that you can now surrender. So you can stop doing. Yoga is all this effort so that we'll stop putting forth effort. And Tantra is just not doing the effort. But it's very tricky. It's harder. Tantra, the surrender one, is probably harder on some level. It's not physically harder, but it's trickier. But so this surrender and this relaxing into the benevolent cosmic ocean is very much the Pisces and the Revati Nakshatra energy. And by the way, I just want people to also understand something. And I want you to understand this again, and it's not to beat the dead horse of the Zodiac question, but it's extremely important to understand. These are the kinds of things where you know that the Zodiac signs and the Rashis are aligned with the Nakshatras. Because it's impossible to think that the same section of sky of Revati, this gentle shepherd that we surrender, is in Aries Rashi. Because if you're not using the sidereal zodiac and you're not doing this the way the Indians told us, which is obviously very sensibly that the zodiac begins on Ashwini and Aries. When you do that, then by the time you get to Revati and the end of Pisces, this is what you have, this final surrender. Well, again, if you're not using that zodiac now, this is Aries. So it's this surrender to the guru and this mystical communion of Pisces, and it's Aries Rashi. No. Just no. So intuitively, you know this, but I just wanted to bring it up because, again, you can see this very plainly. And again, this image here of from the Ramayana of Lord Rama, of his brother, of Sita, and of Hanuman is also very much the spirit of this time of the year, where Rama is the avatar of the sun. And again, this is the new moon that corresponds very closely with the sun going into Aries and the sidereal sign of Aries. And again, it's very much the emergence and the installation of Lord Rama as the avatar of the sun as being important, because we have a couple very powerful celebrations that also occur when the sun is in Aries in its exalted sign, Akshaya Tritiya and others. And so this is a very important, time of the year in that sense and for that reason as well. So these, these indicators are all very important right now. And as we see, it's the sun, moon, and Mercury are also in Revati Nakshatra. And of course, Mercury is in a debilitated sign here. There was the Neecha Bhanga. I did a video on that last week of the Neecha Bhanga, which is when Venus was here, and it was modifying this is the chart. It was modifying modifying Mercury's debilitation. This was the last setup that I did here a few days ago when I talked about the Einstein principle, because Einstein had this Venus exalted and Mercury debilitated. So you see, that was a few days ago, and then now it's not. Venus is now in Aries, so we don't have that Neecha Bhanga anymore. We don't have that modification of Mercury's debilitation. So you may be feeling the kind of Mercury debilitated now. Notice how the last few days, I've definitely noticed it. Even starting this, I'm a little bit in the Mercury and Pisces, like, kind of trying to keep all the details straight, right? And it started, on I think it was the 9th. Yeah, it was on the 9th the 9th and into the 10th, which was 2 or 3 days ago. Venus left. And so the Neecha Bhanga that was rescuing Mercury, he was debilitated, but Venus was there bringing the Neecha Bhanga, is gone. So now we're feeling the Mercury in Pisces, and we also are feeling it, especially over the weekend with the moon being really dark and the moon in Pisces. So really kind of in this Pisces, maybe you've really slept a lot. Maybe you've been a little more tired over this past weekend. I know, like for myself, I meant to do this video a couple of times, and I kind of just couldn't. I could get it straight, but I was like, it was a little bit of a strain, so I kind of waited. But anyway, so, Mercury's going to be in that debilitated sign. He'll be there for about another week. Let's get the exact date here. Until, not too long, the 16th. So for like 4 more days. Mercury's moving really fast, and so is Venus. They're both behind the sun. So they're moving very fast. So only like 4 more days for Mercury then he'll go into Aries. So again, I in my April forecast for this month, I talked a lot about this middle of the month shift that we're experiencing in April, where the first part of the month there was all these planets in Earth and water signs, right? Mars is also up here in Taurus. We had all these planets. Jupiter was down here, Capricorn, and then all these planets in Pisces. And then by the middle of the month, by the middle of April, by the middle of April, we get all these planets moving into masculine signs. Mars is also going to move into Gemini. We already have Jupiter's moved into Aquarius. So that's a big shift from Earth to air with Mars and Jupiter. But then all those planets that were going through Pisces at the beginning of the month as well, which is especially the Sun, Mercury, and Venus, they're all going to be in Aries in a few days. So this is a big shift into air and fire in the middle of April. So again, this is why I'm talking about this new moon cycle, because all these things are really going on now. And so, like I said at the beginning, we're really going to experience this new moon cycle of Pisces. And again, what we're talking about when we're talking about the new moon is, you see, they came together at the same point. So that's the beginning of the cosmic calendar, the Soli lunar calendar of Chaitra. That's not the month of January, February, April, whatever. That's a solar month, which is just connected to the calendar, which just measures the Earth going around the sun. This is a Soli lunar calendar, which is measured in lunation cycles, new moons and full moons. So they're different. They show different things, right? And so this Soli lunar cycle, again, starting sun and moon come together at the end of Pisces, then, but it's still bringing that lesson. So again, it can be very beneficial because it's happening at the end of Pisces, where we're in that kind of subliminal space, kind of. But then we're going to see this shift into Aries, where there's a lot of action, right? And so it's really a lot of emphasis on taking this spirit of surrender and all these things I talked about, this Piscean shepherd energy, this surrender through, discipline and effort, but this kind of effortless effort, like a Zen quality of doing the thing that brings about the surrender. Keeping that in mind, then when these planets move into Aries, and we have all this Aries energy really starting, then we're aligned with action. Then we're going to want to take action, particularly disciplined action, and things like yoga and discipline is really supported. But that doesn't mean we have to forget what the point is of our actions. Remember, this is always the point. And we're supposed to now, we'll be starting a new cycle, because again, this is also, you see how it aligns with the calendar. And so again, the whole idea and the unfortunate thing that's happened with the confusion of the zodiac and the calendar, and those who have tried to mix these things, especially on a cosmic level, is there's always, of course, a correlation of the Soli lunar cycles with the calendar, with the year. Again, this is the Soli lunar cycle that happens near the vernal equinox, because we're living on Earth. We've incarnated on Earth, and our souls' karmas are being worked out on a different level. So that's why this is the starting of the cycle again, because the sun is getting reestablished in his place of eminence in Aries. So the sign before and the lunation and the lunar cycle before in Pisces, when we're rejuvenating and we're like in the cocoon about to break out, that's the one to go, okay, now this is when we're going to start now. And so when we do break out, we're not just like the newborn who has been birthed into a life of ignorance. Every year we're supposed to be learning and evolving. So we've come another year around, and it's starting over again. And so the last several weeks with all the planets through Pisces is the gestation time to really gestate and to really rejuvenate, so that as the cycle begins again this year, it's with more clarity, more courage, more insight, and truthful identity, not just as the screaming hunk of meat that doesn't know anything, like the little baby who doesn't have any experience yet, But no, we still retain the innocence, the mental innocence of Aries. That's excited to start over again. We get to start over again. It's one of the greatest things in life is we get a restart all the time. We make a mistake, we can fix it, do our best to not repeat it. We get a do-over all the time. Our life is just one do-over after another. We get to do it over and do it better. And so that's a lot of the spirit of the next month, is taking that, especially the lessons of, let's say, the last year with so much going on, and really having gestated upon it and really thought and really contemplated and really surrendered, especially to something that's cosmic and something that's beyond. Start now living and coming from a new identity that's more wise and more authentic. Truthful identity, not personality, not ego. That's not the truthful identity. The truthful identity is that being that's in alignment with Dharma and with truth. And that's not just doing things to get connection that's false, or, again, we spend so much of our time enamored with what other people think of us, or trying to look cool, or trying to say the right thing, or avoid that, not getting the approval of the ones we want, and not living our authentic reality, which doesn't minimize any of those things, but it often just leads to a lot of confusion about who we are authentically. Instead, we wind up in some, again, inauthentic type of self-expression, again, where we compromise and trade off our integrity and our truthful identity to try to make other people happy. And then when they don't appreciate it, we get mad at them, we blame them, we do all kinds of things. Underneath it all, we've just kind of lost our soul, lost our true nature. So this is really a time of rejuvenation, as you can see with this new moon in Pisces, Revati Nakshatra, about trusting in the divine, letting go. This Chaitra or Rama Navratri, again, the story of Lord Rama and the Ramayana, is literally the story of the soul going through the trials and tribulations of life. That underneath it all, we're a king. And we get cast out of our kingdom, and it gets stolen from us, and there's treachery, and there's deceit, and there's darkness, and there's every horrible thing we can imagine. Read the Ramayana and see what happened to Lord Rama and his wife, and look at what they went through. But underneath it all, he was steadfast, courageous, and eventually came back around to reclaim the throne. And so, again, these are very powerful symbols now. And especially since we just had Jupiter enter Kumbh, or Aquarius, and this is the year of the Kumbh Mela as well, right? Again, this is where pilgrims go and take a sacred bath in the Ganges, in the Ganga River. And so again, this when Jupiter goes into Aquarius, this is the Maha Kumbh time. So this also shows this auspiciousness of this year. Again, and I've mentioned those things, the auspiciousness of this year and whatnot, many, many times. This web class that you can get, that I've talked about, is available. If you haven't gotten it yet, you just go there. You can register here and whatnot. It's very easy to do. And I talk about all these shifts, these important shifts. Again, right now we're here, but very soon we have some really powerful Mercury retrograde cycles, especially from the end of April till the middle of July in Taurus and Gemini. Very auspicious transit. We also have some eclipses coming up. Jupiter goes retrograde, goes back into Capricorn. Then we have another retrograde of Mercury, and then some other eclipses. And then the end of the year, Mars and Ketu in Scorpio. So you want to be prepared. And you can watch a quick video that I also recorded talking about that. So again, that's free for those of you who haven't gotten it yet. But certainly, right now, very auspicious time, as you can see. Celebrate the Divine Mother as well. Be grateful for the life and the spiritual teachings that you have at your disposal, that's available to you to live in such an auspicious time. And it's really up to you to protect your peace of mind. It's very easy to get despondent now and to get cynical and spin out on all of the darkness, all the dark possibilities in the world. But again, being, choosing joy and happiness, and to not be cynical, and to not, especially again, spin out on the dark conspiratorial ideas, doesn't mean that we can't be watching what's going on, but also checking ourselves and noticing when we're just being triggered by our paranoid responses and our imagined fears. And really just surrender to the divine universe that is our universal mother, our divine mother. This is an amazing story, the Ramayana, which shows the heroism and the courage of your soul's journey. And we're finishing the soul's journey this month and quickly getting on to the new thing. So finishing that soul's journey is very much about that Pisces cycle. And then the, getting on with the new life and the new identity is also big. And I did want to mention, in fact, someone mentioned in the comments, and I want to say as well, that Sunset Ilu said, Gandanta is not talked about enough. I don't know if you mean with me, it's talked about a lot. I talk about Gandantas all the time, but yes, we're in this Gandanta right now. And the Gandanta is the transition points between the fire and the water signs. Well, when the water signs become the fire signs. I talk about it all the time, and it's a big part of what's happening. This isn't a classical Gandanta with this new moon because it's not 29 degrees. It is the last pada of this nakshatra, which one could consider that to be the Gandanta position. What Gandanta means, though, is especially the last degree of the water sign and the first degree of the fire signs. It also happens here, and it happens here between Cancer and Leo, and between Scorpio and Sagittarius. Again, you want to understand this is in every Vedic astrology text. They talk about several different kinds of Gandanta. First of all, at the beginning of the text, they say that Ashwini and Aries begin the Zodiac. Again, so when you do that, you already align where all the Gandanta points are. So then when you're talking about Gandanta, you're talking about between the nakshatras and the rashis, because you've already lined them up. So it's not as if that's, a debatable point. But these points of transition become unstable because there's no nakshatra in between the rashis. So at every other point, for example, between Aries and Taurus, you have Kritika Nakshatra. Between Taurus and Gemini, you have Mrigashira Nakshatra. Between Gemini and Cancer, you have Punarvasu Nakshatra. And these nakshatras show a coherence of energy, and they're literally like qualities of both of the rashis. Very important to understand. And again, it doesn't have to be explicitly stated, but it's obvious once you line the zodiac up like that. Kritika has qualities of both Aries and Taurus. It's like the fire in the earth. That's why it's related to the Vedic priests, where they do fire ceremonies. Again, Mrigashira has qualities of Taurus and Gemini. That's why it's an animal like Taurus is, but it's a deer, but it's a fast deer, like a person is a fast, nimble. Again, Punarvasu has qualities of Gemini and Cancer. So again, this is all sensibly understood. And the Gandanta points, though, again, is where the energy stops. The nakshatra stops and the Rashi stops. So you have a hard stop between Revati and Ashwini, which you don't have in other places. So again, it's very important to understand, not just on a technical level, it definitely shows the alignment of the zodiacs, because there is no Gandanta if you're not using this alignment. It's just simply that it just simply doesn't exist. But also in principle, we can feel the big transitions that are happening right now. And in that context, it's certainly important to discuss or to note, and I appreciate it being mentioned here because I did forget to mention it, that right now we do feel this kind of sort of stress and restlessness as this new moon is happening right near the Gandanta point. And you could say it is the Gandanta because it's the last nakshatra pada, even though it's even though it's not technically 1 degree, it's right at that point. And particularly as I've already mentioned, these planets are moving. It's not as if this new moon is happening and they're at 20. Because even if they were at 20, of course, then in 7 days or 10 days it would move. The sun is moving again. Right now the sun is right on the cusp. Right now the sun is Gandanta as I record this. It's right now, 29 degrees. As I record this now, the sun is literally at 29:03. So it literally just hit the exact Gandanta point as I started doing this. So this shows the transition. And it doesn't mean that the Gandanta necessarily has to be bad. What it literally means is loosening the knot. It's actually a very interesting term because it shows that the other Rashis are knotted together with the nakshatras. Literally, the nakshatras are like knots that hold things together. So there's the Kritika knot that joins Aries and Taurus. There's the Mrigashira knot that joins Gemini and Taurus. There's the Vishaka knot which joins Libra and Scorpio. There's the Chaitra knot that joins Virgo and Libra, for example, right? So there's these knots that join. Gandanta means loosening of the knot, where the knot it comes undone. So imagine if you're trying to pull something along, like you're pulling the zodiac along. You can think of it like that because it's been even illustrated or explained as like a cart. Like the sun is riding a chariot through the sky, right? Riding a chariot, and these horses are like pulling him. 7 horses are pulling him around the zodiac, which, again, this is all symbology, but the sun is like driving the chariot, and he's going through the sky, through the zodiac, and he's being pulled along. You can visualize that, but there are 3 places where the knot gets really loose, where the zodiac knots get loose. They come apart. And it's at those 3 points. So this is how you want to really look at Gandanta in that sense. Things get uncertain because there's a transition. Like the knot becomes untied and then we need to tie it again. And it also starts another triplicity, another section of the zodiac, because Aries to the end of Cancer, this is one of the 3 triplicities. This is the Rajasic section of the zodiac where creation is literally created from Aries to Cancer. Then there's kind of like a knot. Then there's like a stoppage. There's a transition between the creation of the zodiac and then the maintenance of the zodiac, where we're now living on this fixed, solid, stable Earth. That happens here between Leo and Scorpio. And then there's a loosening of the knot. It gets kind of a little sploogey there for a minute, where you're like, oh, okay, now what are we doing? Okay, now we're transcending. Now there's transcendence. This last section of the zodiac between Sagittarius and Pisces is where we're very preoccupied with transcending the karma of this world. First section, we create the world. Middle section, we're sustaining and living in the world. And the last section, we're transcending the world. So now we're at that kind of Gandanta knot, where this kind of transcendence or this otherworldly part is about to take birth again and fly down into a body and be born. So this Gandanta here has to do with that. Has to do with that transition of energy. And I use the example of almost like the fully formed butterfly who is starting to poke through the cocoon. Especially at this point, right? At the beginning of Pisces, you would say maybe it's just gone into the cocoon. Then it's been gestating the whole time. Now, right at the end, that Gandanta point is like he's sort of busting out, but he's not out of it yet. So again, you can see it's a transition. That's the best way to understand the Gandantas. Rather than get into the good, bad stuff, which we love to get into, it's, quote, bad because it's uncertain, unstable, but it's also transitional. And everything is a transition. This is the least difficult transition. This is the least difficult Gandanta because it's already a transitional point. Both of these signs are very transitional anyway. Pisces and Aries naturally are transitional. Again, when you get to Cancer, Leo, it can be hard because the Cancer is like the heart and Leo is like wanting to have power. Again, this Scorpio, Sagittarius is also very transitional because we're like in the world and in our feelings and we're transitioning into beliefs that take us beyond. And again, that's a wrenching transition often. This one is not as wrenching because we're naturally the end of a life and being born into something new. That's a pretty natural transition anyway, but it's still what it is. There's a big difference between Revati, where it's like, okay, surrender into the arms of the divine and da-da-da, and Ashwini, which are, okay, now 2 horses running fast. You can just see how they're very different. And again, you also let this be a lesson to you about the alignment of the zodiacs. And again, there's nothing controversial about this. The fact that some people have made it controversial doesn't mean it is. It's simply not. But you can just notice how obvious it is. And again, if you're using tropical zodiac, this is an Aries, this Revati, surrender, shepherd energy. Of course, that's not what's going on. But you can just see how that they were so explicit about this because there's a huge difference. Every other sign transition has this nakshatra going, but those 3 points, there's a big shift between Aslesha and Magha. Boom. That's a big difference. Jeshta and Mula, and this one especially. This one is one of the more wrenching, especially as very extreme. Like the most relaxing is Revati, the most gentle, the most like letting go, total surrender is Revati. And then 2 horses running as fast as possible in the next nakshatra. So again, if you're not using the correct zodiac, then that doesn't even exist. It's just like, oh, it's all kind of smashed together. No, of course, that's not the way it works. It's those last degrees of Pisces, those last degrees of the zodiac, the last degrees of surrender. And then, bam, now you're back in it. Okay, surrender time is over. Get running. And so you can see how this is a kind of loosening of the knot. It's a loosening of the coherent energy, even between Capricorn and Aquarius, or let's say, there was Dhanishta Nakshatra, then between Aquarius and Pisces, there was Purvabhadra Nakshatra. So there's a continuity. Here, boom, no. Revati, Ashwini. So I'm glad I saw the comment, and I'm glad that I brought that up, or that it came up so I could bring out that nuance, because we can really see it at this section of the zodiac, and also because of what we're going to be going through, and trying to convey that it is still the new moon. It still happened in Aries. I'm sorry, it still happened in Pisces. It happened in Revati Nakshatra. It's in the solar lunar month of Chaitra, and get ready, strap on, because it's really kind of like the butterfly is sort of poked through, and then all of a sudden, once you're through, you need to start flying now. It's going to happen quick. So 3 or 4 days from now, we're going to be, these planets, at least the sun, is going to be in Aries. And then we're going to also have some big shifts with a lot of this masculine energy. So this will be the situation. So, all right, folks, I'm glad we got to come together today. Share this with others if you think it'll help them and all that. I do appreciate your time, attention, and have a great next 30 days.